Yo, 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 what's going on? This is the NOC, the Nerds of Color, and we are back with another knock exclusive. It's your boy, Kuya P, aka Patrick Michael Strange, the Tocino Terminator, the Dinaguan Destroyer, the leader of the Holla Holla Homies in the Center gang. What's good? I got a great one today. I got that guy. Yeah, that guy from Pockets Fulla Pillz, my man, Fred Corder. What's good, bro? How you doing?
What's going on, man? Hey, Kuya Patrick. Happy to be here. Blessed. Coming to you live from Manila, Philippines. Yes, having my coffee. It's mad early.
Go. That's what I'm talking about, man. Appreciate you so much. I know it's crazy when you try to plan stuff with the different time zones. And so thank you. Salamat po, Kuya Fred, man. I appreciate it.
Walang anuman po.
Yes, sir. Hey, man. I just can't wait to dig in your story. You're doing such amazing things, but you're also, when I was like looking at the bio, the breakdown, man, you a DMV cat too. So you're from around my way. So it's wild making this connection.
I just realized that because like we had so many friends, like, crossing over Instagram, Facebook. So like I saw the Nerds of Color, and like, I'm networking and everything. But I'm just now realizing that, the Facebook algorithms in the world knew that we were from the same area. So I was born in DC at Howard University Hospital. And then I moved out to Bowie, Maryland. So Bowie, Largo, that area. I grew up with the Bishop McNamara High School, keep it super local. And then I ended up I went back to Howard I went back to Howard for my undergrad degree. And then I ended up getting my master's in mental health counseling from Bowie State. So I'm super duper local as far as PG County, DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia.
Well, but before we fast forward into all that, I want to know about young Fred. And actually, before we get to young Fred, I like to get the evolution from the seed before we go into this beautiful tree that you've grown into. You know what I'm saying? From the seed to now. So tell us a little bit about mom and dad, man. Because essentially, what and why I asked this is where the vision of what they wanted, of their creation. You know what I'm saying? Like what brought them together, their love to then you being brought into their lives and then, going into what you got into, if any of that was like their goal or anything like that with you.
No,
can you tell us a little bit about your parents and then before you came into the world?
Yeah, I guess that's mad relevant. My parents, my mom and dad met. I'm the super duper like Howard HBCU story. My parents actually met at Howard University Medical School. So my parents are both pediatricians. So Dr. Frederick and Marilyn Corder. So when I was born into like a doctor household, as a person of color. So it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, Filipino, African American, Hispanic. If you're a person of color and your parents are physicians or are physician adjacent in any way, shape, or form, you are supposed to be a physician. Okay. If you fail, maybe you could. Yeah. If you fail, maybe you could be a lawyer. Yeah. So I tried my hand at both, and it just wasn't me. I was just sort of naturally a storyteller, and I love telling stories and talking to people and hearing stories. So in the end, with much struggle, I end up becoming a psychologist. So I'm a mental health counselor. I'm licensed in Maryland to diagnose and treat mental illness. And I did that because that was the closest I could get with balancing my parents' desire for me to be medical and my desire to listen and tell stories. So that led me into the field of psychology.
Oh, okay. So, but was that what you wanted? So what would your parents tell us about a young Fred growing up? What were you into?
Drawing, talking, a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. Back when they thought that was like the devil, I'd sit there with my cousin and we'd talk Dungeons and Dragons. I'd read comics and be too impatient for the next one to come out. So me and my cousin would sit there and I would tell him the story and then extending. So let's say we read Spider-Man and the next issue is supposed to come out next month. We would sit there and draw out the next 2 or 3 issues as we saw fit. And then by the next one and see if it was close to our vision. And even debate if our vision was better.
I love that. Yeah. Okay. So that's where we can see some of these sparks of early creativity to later on. Were your parents very encouraging of that? Or were they like a little bit, that's a little too much. You need to, maybe get into your studies a little bit.
Yeah. I don't want to throw one on the bus, but I was a really crappy student. Like I even tell my kids are really good students. And I'm like, good, it skipped a generation because I was like a CD student, but like with art, I was always obsessed. I would rather sit there and watch like 12 hours of Saturday morning cartoons and like see that as like an education versus sitting down and doing my actual studies. Now, don't get me wrong, I ended up getting my master's, and I finished off pretty strong, but like I was always interested in hearing and telling stories. And that was just like, I just thought that was a firm education as far as I was concerned. So yeah, my parents would be like, when they saw how much I liked art, they tried to wrap me back into school and say, oh, you could be a dermatologist, or oh, you could be a surgeon, you could be a plastic surgeon, you could draw people's faces. And like, and it was so thinly veiled. I was just like, oh, okay, sure. And I went along with it. But I think in college, no, it wasn't even college. I can't give myself that much credit. It was after I graduated and I started working that I actually got back into art.
Okay. Wow. So they kind of pushed you prior to choosing college to go that route. And then it was later on that that love was still there. It was too strong. It had you, and
too strong.
You were like, I did what my parents said, but I really want to pursue this now.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Yeah, that's exactly how it went. And it was one of those things where I remember when I told my mom that I was going to move to the Philippines, I was like, yo, I did everything right. Like, you can't say I didn't do anything. I bought a house. I got the degree. I worked for like 3 or 4 years. Like, at this point, if it was going to make me happy, it would have already made me happy. It's like, Mom, I'm moving to the Philippines. Bro, she was just like, wow. No, we lost one.
Yo, I want to get into that. But before we get there, man, because like there's some great nuggets here, just amazing, like self motivation and positivity of you knowing what you wanted to do and you just doing it. So I love that, man. We need more of that. But because we are POCs of color and that is part of our journey, let's touch on that. I know this could be sometimes a difficult thing, but to me, personally, I've turned all that negative energy into positive energy. Was that same for you? Can you tell us about, growing up being a person of color and experiencing, or did you experience any kind of racism, and help identifying when you did experiencing that, identifying who you are for yourself, and how did you overcome that negative energy and just channeling all that? Can you speak on that?
Yeah, of course. I think any person of color, especially Black people, when they say they don't experience racism, that's sort of like a toxic form of positivity, because racism is so prevalent. It's like, we're not saying did it hurt you, but we're saying, like, did you see it? And if they didn't see it, it's like they're not seeing the forest for the trees. But yeah, man, I've been called the N-word. I've seen my father go through it, my mother go through it. Negativity as far as people assuming my mother's a nurse everywhere she went. And she's like, no, I'm the attending physician. And they're looking at a Black woman and they're like, nah, she's lost. So like, I've seen it on all different levels. I myself have been called the N-word multiple times. And I lived in PG County. And for people that don't know, that live outside of the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, it's like a bubble. It's a bubble for a lot of good things as far as family raising, but it's a bubble because of redlining. It's basically PG County and certain parts of DC and certain parts like Northern Virginia, they are sort of isolated via redlining, where white people historically were like, this is where you brown people can live. And, for once in a lot of different situations that didn't work out, we flourished in those environments. A lot of people can't say that, and those areas turn into ghettos. But PG County, certain parts of DC and Virginia, sort of the DMV as a whole, has become this sort of like Wakanda, of people of color. And but even still, you see that. I remember my dad decided to move outside of PG County. We moved to Anne Arundel County for a little bit, and we had like cross burnings. We had people coming up to the house asking like who lived in the house. Like, it was a certain period of time where I couldn't play outside because we had so many occurrences of people coming onto the property and just sitting and watching me and my sister play in the yard. It was bad. And we ended up moving back into PG County from Anne Arundel County. And my dad used the house that, it was his dream house that he built out in like sort of the rural areas of Maryland. We use that mostly now for like Airbnb and weddings, because it's just not, at least growing up, it wasn't a comfortable place to raise your kids and leave, as a doctor, leave for 12 hours and know your kids are safe. So we end up having to move back into PG County. So yeah, I've seen racism, even though I lived in a very insular, positive environment.
Wow. Yeah. So yeah, we go through it. And so like for me, I turned that that negative into positive, which I'm sure you did as well. And for me, the early stuff was comic books and my art. And you kind of spoke on this as well. You're heavy into the art and getting into that with your brothers and making your own versions of what would happen next in the comic books. I kind of did the same thing, which is funny. I remember particularly when they first introduced Venom. So this kind of shows my age. I'm an old head. When Todd McFarlane first did in like issue number 300 of Amazing Spider-Man, I like did my own version of that. And and then because I was a big McFarlane, as if you can't tell behind me with the spot.
Yeah, awesome. Yo, shout out to your wall. Shout out to your wall.
Thank you,
yes.
Sir. So so I dived into that to just find myself. To escape the negativity that was outside. And the reason I'm bringing this up is, like as POCs, like I gravitated towards Peter Parker, although he was in a POC, but just, that nerd that was always kind of picked on and stuff. And that was kind of Peter Parker. But then there was the X-Men. To me, really, X-Men was major for me. Old John Byrne stories, giant size X-Men, because we had Sunfire representing Japan. We had Wolverine, Logan out of Canada, Storm out of Africa, Colossus out of Russia. So was that escapism? Did that, and because of everything going on, was that kind of the same thing for you for getting into comic books? Because I know that was heavy for me, and or sci-fi. Some people really got into Star Trek, Star Wars. So just kind of like taking that outside POC experience. Well, it's not outside, but us as POCs, then kind of taking that into the creative arts to kind of escape things away and build it, finding your own self in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that ties back to what I was saying earlier about like redlining the things that make Atlanta, things that make PG County, the DMV. As people of color, either we are outside of a protective bubble and our house is our protective bubble, or we're in a very positive area, like, certain parts of New York or DC, but we kind of unconsciously or consciously know you can't go certain places. We all have that concept, like, don't go out to the boondocks, and I think that leads to a certain level of like, we're kind of trapped, even though there's no bars. It's like, if someone's like, oh, let's go to Alabama, drive around in Alabama at night. I think as a person of color, you automatically know, oh, I can't do that. But a white person would be like, oh, sure. Like, let's go see nature. And I think that unconsciously leads to a sense of being trapped in comics and in cartoons. It provides that escapism. Like, there's nowhere you can't go. I remember watching X-Men, the animated series, like the final, like the Phoenix Saga. Yeah. And like they're going to like Japan, and you see like Lady Deathstrike, and you're like this is awesome. And you're traveling in your like 90s sofa, to all across the world. You're getting on the X-Wing, the X-Jet, and you're flying and you're doing all these things. And for a moment, you've forgotten that, like, oh, we can't go to the bayou to go pick up Gambit. We can't, it's just, we could go anywhere. And I think that's the appeal, consciously or unconsciously, for comics and pop culture for people of color.
Yes. All right. So I love that. So let's get into this amazing story, because you had that love from youth, and then you did what your mama said, like you should have. Like we're supposed to. We get that a lot as Filipinos as well. We like gotta go this accounting or lawyer, doctor, whatever. But you did it. You like, moms, I did it. You said it earlier. You bought your house, you had the car and everything.
Yep.
How did this notion? Why the Philippines?
Right.
I'm curious.
Right. Exactly. Because I'm not going to sit here and act like I was a super duper worldly guy. I mean, as an American, people of color, we're all together, but like America forces at least our parents to try to straighten us and make us super duper American. So a lot of people of color, we don't even share our authentic culture with each other. So you'll be in there with Jamaican kids and Filipino kids and Haitian kids, and you won't have a firsthand experience of Haiti, Jamaica, or the Philippines. You'll just all your best try to sort of create this positive experience that's very American. So I won't act like I knew about the Philippines. The story is I finished school and I start working in the prison system. So I used to work in like youth group homes. I used to do intake in the jail. And one of my bosses, like, I would sort people. It's like, if you get arrested, you don't want to like get arrested on public intoxication and then get put in a holding cell with a guy that's like a legit rapist. And then like you wake up from your hangover, sodomized. So like there are mechanisms within the arrest and the incarceration like a system that sorts people out psychologically. So I was part of that. system. And one of my bosses was like, you should definitely do something artistic. Do something artistic, do something fun, because I'm tired of every 6 months hiring a new person because the burnout rate was so high for my job. And I'm like, oh, really? And my boss was super duper duper serious about it. People say, oh, get a hobby. But my boss was like, oh, you have to get a hobby every day. You got a hobby? Tell me about your hobby. Because I think I was like maybe the third or fourth person she had hired in the past like 3 years. And she was like, it's like a 2-month, a training period. So it's making her look bad. She's like, you have to get a hobby. So after it being drilled into me, I finally was like, there is something I want to do. I want to make comic books. She was like, do it. So I went to my cousin, the same cousin that I told you would do the drawing of the comics, and I would tell the story. So I went back to him and I was like, dude, this is our time. Like, I got my degree, I make money now. And my boss insists that we start a comic book company. Amazing. So like I went, he was like, yo, let's do it. So I got an LLC. I created Pockets Fulla Pillz. Of course, that came out of, my psychological experience. Of course, my parents.
Ask you that. Why Pockets Fulla Pillz
it came from a poem I did when I was back at Howard, but it was sort of like a concept I was playing with in my head, because I always had a running saga in my own head, because like when I was told I couldn't make comics, I had to like go to school. I would just still make them in my head. So I was like writing comic stories just for myself, and I had sort of an idea revolving around the fact that the pharmaceutical industry and people and the interplay with that, kind of like the Akira feel, but the whole concept of better living through medication, and I was sort of playing with that concept. I was in a lot of government work, a lot of government incarceration. So like I was just sort of playing with that sort of like ethos. And the idea of Pockets Fulla Pillz came from a poem I was doing where I said, 2 generations ago, we had hearts full of hope. Now all we're left with is pockets full of pills. So like that was the line that stuck with me. And I just used that line to label sort of this amorphous idea of a story that was forming in my head. So I go to my cousin. I'm like, yo, bro, you got to do this. Like, I named the company. It's Pockets Full of Pillz. The story, I told him part of the story. He loved it. He's like, let's write it. So I got everything squared away. And within like the first month, he quit on me. Like, this is my cousin that was like doing the art with me back.
Why, fam?
He was like, we're too old for this. We're too old to be making comic books, and just get over it. And but I couldn't, right? Because my boss each day was like, how's the comics going? So I was complaining to a Filipino American friend of mine. So I'm just sitting there playing PlayStation, just ranting, just going off on my cousin, like this mofo, blah blah blah. And my Filipino friend was like, yo, why don't you hire my cousin? And I was like, oh, really? Your cousin draws? Where's your cousin at? And he's like, this is me gesturing while I'm playing. He's like, yo, he lives in the Philippines. Now, I knew he wasn't black, but I kind of for a long time thought he was from El Salvador, because like he didn't speak Tagalog. He didn't say he was Filipino. It just never came up. So I was like, the Philippines, really? So I ended up hiring, this is like the first time and that's why I mentioned people of color. We're all grouped together and we don't share our authentic culture. So now I'm really digging into the culture of my friend who I never even considered his culture. And like now he's like, yo, if you want to do what you want to do, like tap into my culture, tap into my roots. And I was like, all right, bet. So I hire his cousin like over like Facebook. And like, this is like back in 2011. So I hire his cousin. And then like we start doing work together, and it's amazing. Like, and it wasn't for profit. None of it was for profit. So remember, I had a job. This was just a hobby, and I was just releasing the artwork on Facebook. And then he suggested, and I found it's a very Filipino thing. It's like when you meet one Filipino, you tend to meet 2 more. And when you meet those 2, it's super organic. But like I've never met one Filipino and didn't meet like 3 more. So I end up hiring his one of his friends. Then I hired one of his friends' batchmates. Before I knew it, I had 5 artists working for me. A lot of them were former Marvel artists and had done like a lot of work in like the industry. And I had them working for me at their stated rates. I'm like, how much do you want me to pay you? Like whatever you got paid last, whatever you want to get paid, like add $50 to it, per month. Just like let me pay you just a little bit more, out of appreciation. And still, with all that being said, I was paying those 5 people less than I was paying my own cousin. So I'm like, yo, this is crazy. This is like the super sweet deal. And like, everybody's on, everything's above board, everything's on the table. And like, I have all this firepower to make content. And I just went ham. I just started making so many images and just started just releasing them on my Facebook page for no other reason than to just release them. And my friend of mine was like, yo, you should make a t-shirt company. Because when you're from the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, it's like art, we all think of t-shirts. Yeah, it's like DDTP, madness, shooters. We just like, make a t-shirt company. Yeah. So we started putting them on t-shirts, right? And then a friend of mine, Ed the Artist, shout out Ed the Artist, check him out on Facebook and Instagram. He's a body painter. And like, we went to high school together and he was like, yo, like I should do a photo shoot with you. And I was like, yeah, definitely. So we did this awesome photo shoot of like, he brought these beautiful women over and he body painted them. And then we did like a photo shoot for the t-shirts. And the next day he did a show at Waka Flocka Flames, like private party. And Waka, he was wearing the t-shirt. And Waka saw the t-shirt and Waka was like, I want in on whatever this company is. And the next day, Waka Flocka Flame calls me. And he's like, yo, like, I like this. I like what's going on here, blah, blah, blah. Like, can I buy the company? Can I be part of it, blah, blah. And it wasn't a company. And how do you tell somebody that what you're doing is not a company? Because at this point I had like maybe like 5,000 fans on IG. I got a t-shirt. I've got photo shoots. It's like, well, why aren't you doing, what is it if it's not a company? So I just kind of was like, yeah, it's a company. So I started working for Waka, unofficially as like an artist. I would like pitch ideas to him. He'd like, yes, no. So I started hanging out with like Waka, Gucci Man. Then I started working with like Fat Trell, and I want to just like, I was just pitching a lot of them art and just hanging around. And I won't get, I tell this story a lot, but I'll try to scale back so I don't put it in my business out there. But I got some money. Somebody from within that world paid me some money and was like, yo, don't screw this up or like I'm gonna hurt you. So I get this money, right? And I was like, you know what? I should probably go to the Philippines to get this project done. So I decided for the first time after like 2 years of doing this, because a lot of my artists didn't know each other. Like, it was a very organic thing. Like I said, like I would meet one guy and he suggests his cousin, but that doesn't mean his cousin knew the other guy, that I had met through another affiliation. So I had like 5 artists and they only knew one other member of the team, but they were working together. One would do the color, one would do the ink, one would do one project that tied into the other project. One would pick up another one's slack if they couldn't finish it. So like, but there was a lot of confusion and that didn't matter when I was just producing for myself. Yeah. But like when I tried to put a project together, I said, I need you guys to work more efficiently together. And I came to the Philippines for the first time. And I got everyone together in a Starbucks in the middle of Manila. And that was the birth of Pockets Full of Pills officially.
Bro, go ahead, bro. I love it. It's crazy how the world works. I used to write published comic books, people that know my timeline or whatever. And I had actually thought about that journey, but at the same time, my wife didn't want to move to the Philippines and we were going to, we all our families here. But I thought about that because of just kind of the economics, but also giving back to my people. And so I love what you're doing and how you've been building that. Continue on this journey. So like you did that Starbucks run in and you got together and let's go from there, man. I want to know more about this amazing evolution of
so
that guy. Well, hold up,
that guy, right?
What about that guy? Can we get the info behind that guy?
Yeah, I give you the quick spiel. So when I used, like I said, my parents didn't want me to do art, so I ended up doing a lot of poetry in college, and I used to go to open mics, and like I wanted to tell the poetry, but I didn't want to get drawn into it because I knew my parents weren't into it. Yeah. So I would go and I would do poetry, and just being a kid, just trying to be counterculture, I would deliver a crazy poem and then I would drop the mic and walk off. And so I kept doing that. It was like I thought it was funny. It was like a serial Andy Kaufman kind of thing. I would come and I would have monologues from my story. So I would have like these character monologues, super crazy stuff, and then just walk off. And like they would look at the role and like I wouldn't put my name there. I would just like I would put a different name each time. So people had conflicting like ideas of what my name was. And shout out Poetry. Poetry is Howard University's poetry group. They were like recruiting some of the poets that were in the Howard scene, because Howard had a lot of organizations, and the best way to raise money during like the early 2000s was to throw a poetry slam. So there was all these poetry events, all these open mics, every single sorority, every group, every like student organization had these poetry events. So there was like 3 a week, you know. So they were like, yo, let's go from all these different like rappers and poets, put them together in an actual performance group. And as they were talking about, as the notable poets came together, they were like, yo, we should get, you know, Mike, you know, no, his name is John. And they were like, you know, that guy, you know, the guy I'm talking about, the guy I used to have like crazy hair that stood up. I had like, I used to like put like hair gel inside my my locks. So they stood up like Hellraiser. So everyone knew who they were talking about, but they couldn't figure out who I was. And one girl actually knew me because she lived in my dorm. And she came and she was like, hey, Fred, I don't know how to say this, but like they want you to join an organization, but they don't know your name. And I came to the first meeting and I was like, hey, you know, I was flattered and I was kind of like, I was flabbergasted. And they were like, yo, we want you to join, but you need a stage name. And we suggest you use the stage name that everyone's already been starting calling you. And I was like, what's the name people have been calling me? And they were like, that guy. Because they were like, that guy with the hair. No, that guy that was at that event. No, I'm talking about that guy that was at this event. So my name just became that guy. Yo,
I love it. Oh my God. Yo, that's crazy. It just, our stories are very similar. I used to do spoken word too. I'm actually curious when you were at Howard, because I know a lot of people. I used to do a lot of short films over there. I actually did a couple sessions with some acting classes there with some people, like, man. So I'm sure.
Yeah, I was there from like I started the summer of '99 to like 2004, and I still performed in the area until like about 2006 ish.
Yeah, we probably ran it.
I'm like, you know, sure like Droopy,
we ran in the same circles. Who?
You know, Droopy. Remember Droopy? No. Amanda. We could go. Yeah, we could go off camera. Probably.
This is your interview. This ain't about them right now. My bad, bro. But like, I know we've ran in the same circles. Just in some of these things you're talking about, and if you're during that time, that was my time frame there too.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. It's such a small world. I love it, man. I love how you're building just that energy, that positive, man. And oh man. So so that was explanation of that guy. We're now past that. You're building, you're there, you met all these cats in Starbucks, and now you're just doing your thing. Let's go further with that, because I know eventually you start a toy company. Like you're just building, bro. Like
yeah, I got some of the art toys right here. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So these are handmade resin art toys.
Yeah.
Let me get some stuff over here. Yeah. So these are characters from the actual storyline. Mm-hmm.
So how did this evolve into that? How did this all came to be?
Right. So all right. So I remember you asking questions for me earlier, and it was about Filipino heritage and all that. And I'm not Filipino, obviously, but there's certain things that rub off on you once you start living in Manila, in the artist community, and that's like super duper self-efficiency. And everyone here is like, yo, do it. Like if you do it on an amateur level, then do it, you know? So there's a lot of indie comic book companies here, a lot. And that's the thing that really drew me in, because like it was this whole culture of, oh, if you have an idea, they have all these crazy, really high quality printers that are super duper cheap. You can print your comic book here. They have all these small, like low barrier to entry, like Comic-Cons that you can join to sell it. And I think maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, one of my homies that I used to do a lot of events with, named Quicks, he got super duper popular. Quicks started making these art toys. And I remember I was next to him selling comics, and he was selling art toys. And he was like, yeah, I'm gonna turn this toy into a comic, but I want to do a toy first. I'm like, oh, I used to sculpt when I was a kid. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, that's never going to work out. And then now like Quicks is the biggest toy artist like in the world.
Wow.
And like he used to be in the booth next to me. So a lot of people start following, you know, his movements. And I mean, I was just watching it. And I think over the last year and a half, a friend of mine was like, yo, you should do art toys for your characters. Cause like, you know, they're selling, you've got like a following. So they could, a guy named Armand Kendrick, who's also a very noteworthy artist that read Pockets Full of Pills comics, was like, yo, you should definitely do it. And like, and he knew Quicks. And I was like, oh, I know Quicks. And so I was like, yo, all right, I'll do it. So they finally convinced me, and we started making resin art toys, and, you know, we just been off to the races. So now we do like Toy Con events. Yeah. And it's all done here in Manila. extremely crazy talent going on in the city.
Amazing, man. I love it. I love it. And I think I saw that character from a Baltimore Comic-Con. You actually had a cosplayer dressed up as that character.
Oh, you saw that. You were there, like physically?
No, I didn't see it phically.
Okay.
I might have. I wouldn't be surprised. I saw some of the trailers that
okay. Yeah. Now we were accosting people. Like we take the whole LARPing thing to a whole nother level, like almost get into fights. Like, you know, because the character, we don't call it cosplay. The character is there. Period. Okay. Point blank. Period.
Fully existing. Character. Like, yeah.
Fully existing. Maybe only for a Comic-Con, but he fully exists. Like, there is no take off that or take off this. Stop playing around.
Amazing.
So he's fully there. And we took that to Baltimore Comic-Con, you know, and it was mixed results, but it always led to memorable videoed moments. So I remember one of the times we were accosting Run DMC. It was the year that Run DMC was at Comic-Con.
I was running his booth with him. I was doing
really.
I actually covered like the whole day with him because my partner was his manager for that event.
Okay, so one of the after he finished signing, and I was keeping an eye on it because I was also running our booths, but like I had actually my wife was sort of watching and queuing us in. So once he finished signing and he kind of like ran out of comics and he was sitting on his on the booth, kind of like I'm done for the day. Yeah. He came around and sat, and we were waiting because we saw him do it like the Friday or Thursday before. And we're like, that's the perfect time because we didn't want to interrupt him while he was making money because that's just rude.
Exactly.
But we knew he hung around for a long time, maybe like 30, 40 minutes after he finished, and just sort of sat on the table and talked to people. So once we got that cue on the second day, we sent over the Suit Slash the Machine, and he started like accosting him, and he was like, "I'm your lawyer. Like, you owe me for those album sales," and, you know. And we had him just like act like sort of like an estranged wife, but like an estranged lawyer. And he's like, he's like, "Hey, you know who I am," and like, this whole thing. And Run was like, "What the heck is going on? Like, this is not." And then afterwards, I came up like sort of like I was his assistant, and I was like, "Here's his card. Please give him a call. You know, the Mr. Suit Slash the Machine would like to see you in his office." And we just walked away and we filmed the whole thing. And it was like one of those secret camera things. And he was just like, "What the hell?" And we end up I don't know why we didn't publish it. I felt like maybe it was too far, but it was funny in the moment.
Yeah, Daryl is mad cool, man. That was a wild convention. Good times. Yeah. Amazing. So you build the toys, you have this going on. What are some lessons for those that are wanting to do what you're doing? What were some hard lessons that you learned that you would impart to those coming up?
I would say that you don't want to wait as long as me. People see what I'm doing locally, domestically, and internationally. And they're like, "Oh, wow, you're a success story." But honestly, I don't feel like a success story. No, I count my blessings, of course, but like, I don't feel like a success because I took so long in my journey to actually do what I knew I wanted to do what I was good at, you know? And I think for everybody, you are awesome at like one thing. You're lucky if you get two things, but you're definitely awesome at like one thing. But the problem is, depending on when you're born and who you're born to, you know, and where you're born, that one thing might not be appreciated, but you appreciate it nonetheless. So you should take whatever that thing is and go for it. Go for it. Don't wait for the stars to align for you to be born in the right century, to the right parents, in the right place. Do what you are a beast at and give it to the world. And this is not like a pity party. Like I was born in great circumstances, but I think it was counterintuitive of me being an artist. I could have been a great member of society, but I wouldn't have fulfilled my personal dream, my personal, like, what I was best suited for, which I'm living now. And I'm grateful that I actually am living it now, but definitely start early, man. Start early because nobody is going to make it easy for you. You just have to do what you can do because you can. You can't wait for permission. And the thing about me is I got permission. I was forced to do what I knew I needed to do. So I'm lucky in that regard.
So what's the fam feel about it? The parents, because those are the big ones that we try to always please. So what have they signed off now? Or are they like, okay, Fred?
Nah,
not all the way.
Not all the way. Okay. My mom is always like, my son's he's a mental health professional, blah blah blah. I'm like, Mom, you forgot to mention I'm a comic book writer. Oh, I think I said that. I'm like, definitely didn't.
so the mom's the hard one to still please right now. She wants her boy home. Right.
Yes. And comics, when they take you across the world, it's sort of like, well, maybe he'll stop doing that. But I go back home. Like I said, I do Baltimore Comic Con. Okay. We try to do Awesome Con in DC. We do Small Press Expo in Bethesda.
SPX.
We do Hampton Comic Con, which is actually pretty cool.
Those are all my shows. So we had to have ran into each other.
Yeah, I had to
every one of those shows.
Oh, that's crazy. Okay, yeah, we had to have. So like we do those events, we come back home. But yeah, it's one of those things where you really. Another thing is, let your fan base tell you what they want. Mm-hmm. It like when I created my story, I was trying to do sort of the stuff that I wanted to do versus with my fan base. So this is after you're doing already what you want to do and you cultivate a market. It's a give and take. So talk to your fans and get feedback from them. So one of the great things that we had with social media and Facebook at the time, Facebook is still really big in the Philippines. Instagram is just starting to take off. I know that sounds weird, but Facebook is still basically the internet in the Philippines. So like I would go off of like, all right, if we got 100 likes on this image or 2,000 likes on this image, then all right, the fans have spoken. They want more the Suit / the Machine. So then I would make more Suit / the Machine comics. And it just sort of worked that way. And and get like and appreciate your fans. So we do a lot of things, like we do like movie like block screenings for movies. So if throughout the year people will buy comics, buy t-shirts, buy stickers, and they'll all be entered into a chance to win. And we fill out a whole movie theater and like do like whatever end of the year movie it is, like either Star Wars or Marvel, just sort of give back to the fans and like give them a sneak peek of the new artists we're hiring for the coming year. Give them some like exclusive, like early swag, like poster covers from like next year's upcoming like comic releases. But do it big, and that's what Manila really taught me. It's like you are a whole industry within yourself. Just treat it as such.
Amazing. I love it. So back going into that again. So like you went there, your friend told you about it. You found these artists. How was it? Let's talk about your personal transition, if you don't mind. So how was that for you, being accustomed to growing up in the States? And here you are. Did you know the language? How long did it take you to learn the language? How was that?
So I speak a little Tagalog now. I try to mix it in. Like you hear me probably throughout this conversation. I try to throw it in. Now, a lot of times Filipinos are like, I speak English. And I'm kind of like, but I don't speak Tagalog well. So let me practice. So I try to put that into my own talking just to practice. But of course, everyone here speaks English. So it was difficult. It was a conscious choice to learn Tagalog and to make those efforts. But I didn't grow up in America. I grew up in the DMV. Okay, which is different. I feel you.
You know what? You're right. You're a mix of cultures here.
Yeah. Yes. So if I grew up in South Dakota, this might have been rough. but for me, like the reason why I got here is because I was complaining to a friend of mine who happened to be Filipino. Like I went to Catholic school in Maryland. Like I was used to a lot of Filipinos. It's sort of like being brackish water, like a brackish water fish. I used to like fish tanks when I was growing up. And you get a brackish water fish, and you're like, what is brackish water? It's not salt water and it's not fresh water. So like you can turn a brackish water fish gradually, but pretty easily to a freshwater fish. And you can turn it into a saltwater fish. So that's how I was as a Black person growing up in PG County. Like there were so many Filipinos around me, and in so many similar cultures, like the Hispanic culture that had a lot of parallels. And then of course the African American culture is so similar to Filipino culture that when I got here, I was just kind of like, oh, like I'm in Columbia Heights. I just kind of, for a second, I could just dilute myself into thinking, oh, I'm just in a part of the DMV that's super Filipino or super El Salvadorian. And then eventually it just was like, oh, this is completely normal. Like, I don't notice that it's not the DMV. And that's really startling for a lot of people. They're like, so is it that similar? Like Manila is mad similar to the DC, Maryland area. It's like if you mix DC with Kingston, Jamaica.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. So it's awesome. Yeah. And like, you know, and the people here, I think it's the biggest thing. The people here, especially when I speak Tagalog, they think I'm Filipino because a lot of the northern Filipinos are classified as Negro to begin with. And that was a classification.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they see me and they're like, are you from was it Subic Bay? From Subic Bay? Are you was it Eta? You know, so there's a, when I start speaking Tagalog, like I just kind of blend in because there's a lot of like Afro Filipino culture here. And that's something that I didn't realize when I first came here. And it was something that just kind of dawned on me as it was being presented. Like the people from like Zambala, Zimbanga. I think it's Zimbanga. I don't want to say it wrong, but up north. So I'll give you a quick history lesson to be corrected if wrong. So I for some reason I taught her at school, still trying to keep my psychology stuff intact, and I taught her at school in there.
You still do that partially on the side beyond the comics?
I do life coaching. Okay. I do life coaching on the side, right? Yeah. But I taught psychology and I was a school psychologist here for a year. And somehow, I guess they thought the optics looked good. They had me teach Filipino history, which makes no sense. So I'm sitting there teaching Filipino history and I'm mortified. Like, don't want to be wrong, right?
Yeah.
So I started studying into like, you know, Filipinos and early migrations, things like that, like who the Filipino people are. You know, because, you know, when you look at Filipinos, it's very hollow. It's like, are you guys... is it Asian? But there's definitely some African influences. Yeah, like you get that Hawaiian look. You know, you get that very Eastern Asian look. So you get very Hispanic feel. There's a lot going on. So I really delved into it. Like, all right, this is a diverse group of people in one nation. And one of the things that I learned is that now this is crazy. Now just hear me out here. So I've been telling people, I'm like, yo, tell me if this is right or wrong. Because this is what my research has shown me, and I want to be corrected. So if wrong, so during the first ice age, humans are definitely a thing. First ice age comes, ice comes up to like Australia, ice comes down to like basically England, like London. So you had a lot less water in what's known as the Indian Ocean. So African people started migrating off the coast of Africa, just sort of island hopping, because there's a lot of islands right underneath the water. So they're following animals, water buffalo, just treading across the different islands. So they're following them. So you got a lot of like what we know as Zimbabweans just going across this area, thousands of years, and settling in these islands. Thousands of years pass, the water fills back in. These people are not African. They are where they are. They've been there for 1,000 years. They're not running back. Okay. And they just sort of get landlocked. So now you have these landlocked African populations sort of, you know, interbreeding with each other, becoming more individualized from their original African descendants. And then there's a second wave of humans coming out through the Middle East, becoming Asian, and then developing diverse cultures and advanced cultures. And then they started trading with these isolated African populations. And then over time, a lot of them defect and say, hey, I'm not going to work for China anymore as a salesman. I can marry into this chiefdom. And now I can negotiate prices better. So you get a lot of Chinese people and Japanese people defecting for trade purposes and then becoming an upper level of society and then mixing and becoming a more Blasian kind of society. And then over time, there's more conquerors that come and stay and mix. And you start getting what is now the modern Filipino population.
I completely agree. Personally, I've been that's crazy. Yeah. I've been doing my own research as well, because I grew up in the States. And from looking and getting material, you know, as early documents that I can find, and just I would say that second wave was the Austronesian. I think was the
Malay people.
Yeah, was that title? But yeah, to me, the early, I think it's the Negritos is what it was called for the very first. Yeah, to me, the first Filipinos were black. For those that don't know, I that's from what I've looked at, and some of the. Didn't we find like recently, like within the past 5 or 10 years, like there's like the oldest man's bodies was found in like a cave in the Philippines or something like that?
What they did is they found a whole bunch of like subhumans. So humans, like, people like, so Homo habilis, like the early man, because humans came from Homo habilis, in Africa, but Homo habilis was capable enough of leaving and creating Neanderthal and creating like Hobbit man that was here. So that just proves that humans and proto-humans were easily able to go from Africa directly across into these islands, and then once official humans, came following those ancestors, they ended up killing them. That's why on the island of Java, they had all the people like, they were like killing the hobbits, like putting holes in their head and dumping them in the caves. And there's all these like the Aswang myths of these little people.
And the Duende were
the Duende. Oh, yeah. Oh,
dude, exactly. Wow. Yeah, man. No, I love that you're learning about the history and all that. And that's kind of, and actually I feel kind of like seen, because you've seen the same and came across, and like, so to me, I feel like my research has been verified and validated to a degree.
The craziest thing. All right. So when the Spanish first came over, they weren't really they were Mexicans, but really, at that time, there was no reason to differentiate between Mexico and Spain. It was one country. But when they came over, the first island they found and they landed on, they named it Negros. Because the most important thing they noticed was not the coconuts, not the animals, but the people were Negro.
Yep.
So that was the most distinguishing feature of the first island they found in the Philippines. So that whole region is like Negros Occidental.
Yep.
So
wow.
And if Filipinos were categorized as Negro until I believe the Americans came, and the Americans were like, we got enough Negroes, and they recategorized them as Asian.
Yep. Oh man, dude. Wow. I love it. We're gonna have to talk on some other creative stuff, because I'm working on quite a few things. One of the big things I'm trying to tell is the Battle of Mactan. Whether that's true, if Lapu Lapu was real or not, there's a lot of controversy about that. But to me, that's an important story, because especially in regards to rebelling against colonizers. And that's what Lapu was all about with Magellan.
Yeah. They're talking about that. They're talking about the stone that Magellan died on. There's been like a lot of vandalism recently. And there's a big controversy right now about should they keep the stone that he died on as like a historical marker, or is it okay to vandalize it and destroy it because it's abolishing colonial mentality? It's like that's a big story going on right now. They're like, no,
it's like the 500th anniversary, I believe, right?
Yeah, it's coming up, right? Yeah, no, it came up, and then like recently, no, it was the 500th anniversary of the Catholic Church. So it was like it's right around that time, because like Lapu Lapu brought the Catholic Church.
Well, no, not Lapu Lapu. Magellan brought
Magellan. That's what I meant. Sorry, right? Magellan, and then he was of course killed by Lapu Lapu.
Dr. Lapu was like, "No, we ain't having that." And okay.
Oh, I love the history, man. I love it. But what it does is it shows a lot of solidarity between the communities, and I think part of white supremacy is trying to convince Black people that they aren't the same, because like solidarity is the scariest thing to white supremacy. Because the more of you create a minority group by breaking them up into smaller pieces.
Yeah,
taking a majority and breaking them up.
I have to ask you, with you being there, and I'm sure as you saw, and I'm sure like last year to this year, last year was very important that Black Lives Matter. And now this year, with recent attacks on our elders and women, the Stop Asian Hate movement has been going on now. With you living in the Philippines, and you being of color and being on both kind of, there with both sides, is the conversation the same there? I'm curious.
Yeah, no, I mean, there has been, when coronavirus first happened, we were the first country to have a death outside of China. So we are sort of like, and I hope it doesn't get me in trouble. I'm gonna make an analogy. I'm not gonna say this is exactly a one-to-one, but we're like the Bahamas to China. Okay, a lot of Chinese tourists come to the Philippines as like a close getaway. Yes. So I'm not tying any geopolitical thing. I'm just saying proximity-wise. So we have a lot of Chinese tourism, and the first lady, the first people that died outside of China were two Chinese tourists that did like a tour. It's like, they weren't coming here just to visit. Like that's why I mentioned the tourism aspect. They flew into Manila, and then they went down to Cebu. They toured Cebu. They went down to Mindanao. They toured Mindanao, and they come back up to Manila and do a city tour. And then one of them drops dead. And then they're like, oh, we have coronavirus. Like that was, so that we were the first people to lock down in the whole world because of that. So there was a lot of anti-Chinese sentiment. And I think a lot of that has a lot of ties in what's going on geopolitically. But there was sort of like a version of Asian hate as far as people blaming the Chinese. And in the very beginning, it seemed very normal. You know, it's like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. Oh, it's not about race, it's about geography. But I think before the Stop Asian Hate, people start being like, man, too many of us are mixed with Chinese. Too many of us are Chinese and speak Tagalog, you know, because we've just been here for long. But like, we can't like sort of hate on our own. So I think sort of that fever of intolerance started in the Philippines, but like we were able to, and I say we because, you know, I consider myself a local, we start checking ourselves and being like, yo, it's going from blaming the Chinese government to blaming Chinese people. And that's a dangerous place to go. So I think the Stop Asian Hate just sort of gave us a reminder of the cliff we walked to and walked back from.
Wow. Thank you for that insight. One of the things that has been bothering me as of late is, you know, I love that we're coming together and it's beautiful, but what's bothered me is that there's just kind of still that infighting. Like, you know, we're saying Stop Asian Hate and we're also putting out Stop API Hate, you know, because we have that inclusion of the Pacific Islander into that mix. Right. But then there's Filipinos that don't want to be included with Asians and that separation, but it's like we're all fighting the same fight. And we also had a gentleman of Filipino descent that was attacked coming off a subway in New York, which was a part of this. And then we had a Filipino, Angela Quinto, I think was his name, who died with from a police officer in California who, you know, the same thing that happened with George Floyd with the knee against his neck. So it's just, it's crazy. It's sad that, again, and you brought this up as well, is that they're making us POCs fight against each other in a way. Right. And we have the animosity between it when we can't just come together. We could be such a force if we'd come together. But anyway, that's sidetracking from the amazingness that is that guy, Fred Corder. But I appreciate you. That's part of all of our journeys. And we, as POCs, you know, that's why we do what we do, to help, you know, also give that escapism with our work. What are some things you can tell us about current projects that we should know about and look for with Pockets Fulla Pillz?
So I'll give you the quick little run view. So we have 13 books published right now. They're available. Sadly, they're available only at Comic-Cons right now, but we're working on that for a digital release. I'll give you the quick elevator pitch.
Can we purchase online? Are they available?
Yeah, so we're about to put them back online to ship globally. Yeah, so you can check us out on our Facebook and Instagram for our new global shipping. All right, so the story revolves around Dr. Rashida Johnson. She's a Filipino-American neurologist. Her boss asked her to make a neuroenhancing medication for the U.S. military. She makes it and it works, but her boss wants more. So behind her back, they start purifying it on these poor little clone monkeys until it becomes so strong it's got a new side effect. It now allows to take her to see other dimensions. Now, what I forgot to mention is her boss happens to be the CIA. And the dimension they find is a little place called hell. Now, they don't get nervous. They don't get religious. They get nervous. How long for China, Iran, Russia realizes hell is real? But more importantly, that Satan is pure renewable energy. So they do the only logical thing. They got to find themselves a team of Americans to break into hell, to kidnap Satan for American energy domination. And that's just the beginning of our story. It gets crazy after that. Yes.
I love the pitch. I love the Hollywood style pitch.
There we go. So each story revolves around a cast of characters that tie into the whole continuum. It's very much like Pulp Fiction or Snatched, where you can read their individual stories and it seems singular, like Nuke's Hawk, a Washington, D.C. area skateboarder that accidentally sells his soul to Satan. And of course, the suit / the machine, junk cyborg attorney. If you're going to be selling your soul to Satan and editing contracts with the devil, you better find yourself a lawyer that doesn't quite have a soul. So they all tie together in like sort of this, so they're all, it's sort of a Game of Thrones type thing where they're all fighting for their own self-interest, you know, and you see how their lives are being manipulated for a larger goal.
Awesome. So the PFP is its own universe.
The umbrella.
And all these different characters interact within the universe.
Right.
Awesome.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So they all decide to shoot their shot for happiness, and you see if that all works out. We've got characters. We have two lead Filipino characters. So we have Chris right here.
Mm-hmm.
This is Chris. So she's Filipino American. And of course, we have the titular Rocket Girl, who is half Black, half Filipino.
Okay. So are these titles all ongoing, or they standalone issues, and then you combine them? How what is exactly the structure?
Right. So each character, as you can see, I'll show you. So each character gets a 3-part origin story. So you see right here, it will say like 4.1. Right. Yeah. So it goes all the way until you get to his final copy right here, which is 4.3.
Okay.
So you'd read Nukes from 1 to 3 in his volume, sort of like a beginning, middle, and end of his origin story. And it typically links to another character. Now you can stop right there because it's a completely insular, singular story within that 3-part arc.
Okay.
But if you keep reading, you see how maybe certain things that you just sort of took as law, within his story, why that is. So it builds out. It's sort of like Legos. Like one block is its own thing, but as you read it, the story grows. And like it's also like those toys you get where you buy the toy and you get a piece of like Doomsday. If you keep buying the toys, you can build Doomsday. So the story is very much like that. So a lot of people will follow a certain character, read that 3-part arc and say, yo, I'm a lawyer. I'm in law school. So I read the Suit Slash the Machine, Junk Cyborg Attorney. Like that really resonated with me. I don't really care about the rest of the stuff, but they come back to buy t-shirts, stickers, because, variant covers. But then other people, as they read, they go, I want to know about his newest case. And they check out Nukes. And then I want to know about Nukes' girlfriend. They check out Chris. And then so once you read those 13 and it's an ongoing series, you start being like, there's something going on behind the scenes here. And you start getting to the whole hell heist.
Okay. I gotcha. So it's essentially in the traditional floppy style format,
right.
For picking up. Are there thoughts down the line? And you were saying, I think you said that you are looking for possible digital way of having these materials, so that way if they can't reach you at a convention, or if they don't, or some people are getting out of the whole paper market, they just they read their stuff on their iPads or on their computer. So you're looking to do a digital route. Have you also thought about the trade paperback? Because the graphic novel,
yes, we are one book away from our graphic novel. So once we hit 14, that would have concluded a volume 1.
Got it. Okay.
So we're at 13. So once we hit 14, which is upcoming, we would have hit our quota for our volume 1, and that'll be a lot easier to ship. Because what I used to do is because at first I was like, man, screw the West. Like I got Manila. Like what else do I need? Because people don't realize Manila has, millions of people. Manila has more people than New York.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of mind blowing. Like, really? It's like, yeah, by far. I think Manila has like, roughly give or take like 17 some odd million. I think New York has like 5. So it's a lot more people. And then the Philippines of itself almost has the US's entire population on a livable landmass of Virginia. Yeah. So like there's a lot of people and they're densely populated and they love comics. So like when I first
works better for there.
Right. Yeah. Yes, exactly. And a lot of people really want something because there's a huge trading thing going on here. I think that ties back to, the open market culture here. They still have the fruit market. So Comic-Cons are just a translation of that. So people buy stuff, get it signed, and then when they fall on hard times, they'll sell it to someone else and the price will go up a little bit. So people use these as like an asset. So that's why, these actually sort of did well.
Yeah, I see that. Thinking about that now, it makes my being an industry guy and seeing how the markets have changed. I used to do I used to self-publish comic books and run a studio and all of that, and then it kind of like you went from floppies to you have to just go the graphic novel route. You know what I'm saying? Just combine all 4 issues instead of doing them separate floppies into one small trade, and now digital that coming in. But thinking about it, that's a very Western idealized thinking now of how the market is,
right,
where it is different over there.
So it definitely succeed. Right. It's definitely like a barter, asset like mentality over here with like these comic books, and people save them, and and they'll trade them, and they'll pay their rent with them. It's real. And so that was my original thinking, because like I said, I had left the West, and I'm like, I'm not going back. I got half the population of the US here, and a quarter of them buy comics. Like, why would I ever, So then I start coming back to the US for like Baltimore Comic-Con. And what I did, I used to bring suitcases of my comics over, and do the Comic-Con and leave whatever I didn't sell like at my house. Yeah. And then when people would order, I would just like have my sister or my mom or my cousin like ship it out to those people. But coronavirus, limited that.
Yeah. Okay.
So
wow, man, I dig it. That's amazing. So the toy, the toys, right. How is that with all of this?
We are for. Oh my God, I think Sparkles has rabies. This is one of our comic books. It's a cartoon within our cartoon. So you can actually see it. I'll show you right here. You can see this character inside of our comic here. So our character Chris actually reads, this little silly cartoon, and it's sort of just part of her nightmare escape. And we actually turned the plush into an actual toy. So this is, oh my God, I think Sparkles has rabies, our Tylenol variant. So it's a limited painting variant. And you can find it at Tenacious Toys in Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, okay.
So people can go ahead and buy that. So where we have our toys on lock in the US. You can go into Tenacious Toys in New York and order it directly.
Amazing, man. I just love what you're doing, the entrepreneurial aspect of everything, and just, and employing our people. As a Filipino, I love that you're giving back to my homeland out there, man. What else is there for that guy? So you it's like, you decided not to be a psychologist anymore. You're doing comics and you're doing it big. Toys, we got that. What's next? Like, are we gonna see like some translations to film? Like,
so
what are we doing here?
I'm glad you brought that up.
Video games, gaming.
Right now we are in talks, very preliminary talks, for an animated series. So, and a lot of my inspiration came from the big homie. You're gonna have him on your show, Budget Tan. So
he's gonna be one of the leaders with him tomorrow.
One of the leaders of the indie comic book scene here, Budget Tan. He got himself a Netflix deal, and we all are looking to follow in his footsteps. So right now we're shopping the animated series of Pockets Full of Pills.
Awesome. I love it. Shout out to Budget. Check out Trece when it comes out on Netflix, and you can pick up all his other volumes. Great guy. I'm really looking forward to talking to him. I can't wait, man. I love your attitude. I love your vision. I love the spirit. And you're a local DMV cat from here, now doing it in the Philippines, man. Keep us posted with any other projects you have going on. I'd love to show love and do that, man, because you're doing amazing things, man. This is great. And Ashley, man, I want to network with you on the side because there's some other things I'm trying to do. I think that we could definitely collab. Actually, you know what? Before I go, there was one nugget that we touched upon that I had to bring it back to that because it is kind of what drove you out to the Philippines. You said that there was, I don't know if it was a rapper or somebody pulled you to the side. You got a little bit of change, and then he was like, "Okay, I got to make this work." Is whoever that person now satisfied? And you don't owe no money?
Yes, I owe no money. Yes,
because it's kind of like, oh no, did he just kind of escape to the Philippines?
They're gonna see this video and be like, I know where he's at. Like,
so let's go back to make sure you're in the office.
This fool's giving interviews. This fool's giving interviews. Get him. No, this isn't like Better Call Saul, but I'm doing interviews.
Yeah.
No. No. I overperformed. I oversold for that client, and they were very happy. So yeah.
That's awesome. This is good to know because I don't want my boy to get hurt, man.
No, we're good. We're good on all coasts. We're good on all coasts.
But could there also be those so the Waka Flocka? He hasn't put out a single in a while. So I don't know if he's still hard in the paint. But
shout out to Waka Flocka.
Any other projects going on that we could possibly still see you in regards to those collabs?
I'd be remiss if I said I'd be hurting myself if I spoke on things that are currently in development. But look out.
You know what? Let's not get you in trouble. I'm sorry, but I can't wait because those are amazing collabs.
Yeah, because I want to say stuff and then it's like
we don't want to get
so preliminary. You don't want to put too much weight on like, you know, on that strand of a bridge you have.
Exactly.
By talking
so
about.
I apologize for almost putting you on the spot, but that just shows
I almost
how
said
good
it too.
you're doing. You know, so I almost got that nugget. You know,
yeah, you were skillful in lulling me into a sense of confidence. Yeah, you're good. You're good.
I didn't think about it, but then I thought about it. I'm like, nah, I want to, but then nah, I don't want to get my
no, I want to too. Yeah, no, but check us out on Facebook and Instagram.
Pockets so all the information right there, but tell it to them for those audio listeners, but I'll have all the information in the description. But yeah, tell them how they can reach out to you, Fred.
You can hit us up on Facebook and Instagram, Pockets Fulla Pillz. Also on YouTube, it's Pockets with an S, Fulla with an A, Pillz with a Z, and we have the dubious honor of being the only African American comic book company in the Philippines. We are Fil-Am to the fullest extent, and we love putting people of color into our crazy Lovecraftian world and giving them a voice outside of traditional stereotypes.
Love it. Kuya Fred, man, I appreciate you. Thanks so much for joining us on the Nerds of Color. I am Kuya P here in the DMV. I'll hold it down for Fred since he's over there now, since I can't be. That's actually, by the way, that's my dream. I've never been to my homeland. That's a goal, honestly. And so if I ever make it that way and you're in the neighborhood, we'll definitely got to get up.
Yo, this is what you got to do. All right. You have to come out here during one of the big cons. Don't come out here with that wall you got in the back. With that wall, shout out to your wall. Shout out your wall.
You ain't seen the rest of the studio. I'm gonna have to I've been meaning to do a studio tour for our fans. Yeah, because there's a lot more than this.
So just seeing that wall, you need to come out here for ToyCon. ToyCon Manila is the largest vintage and art toy show in all of Asia, all of Southeast Asia. So we got Indonesia, we got Malaysia, we got Vietnam, we got Singapore, we got them all beat. Australia, Papua New Guinea, Hawaii, like we got it all beat. The biggest like toy, comics, pop culture event is ToyCon Manila. Come back to the motherland, do a show out here. I know the guy that runs it, he's super cool, Kuya Vic. Like that would be an awesome like visit / like press pass.
I can't wait.
Event.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm trying to work with my friends at TFC and Mix Global. I recently had them on Show Pal Show, and hopefully I'll be going out there to experience it. Never been, so I can't wait, man. I appreciate you, bro, so much.
All right.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to that. Hit me up, Kuya P here at the Nerds of Color, at the Nerds of Color Everything, where we give you pop culture from a POC perspective, as well as at the NRW and at New Release Wednesday, where nerds rule the world. And of course, Show Pal Show, where I represent for my Philippine ex people, how we're doing it big in all various fields of industry. So check us out at Show Pal Show. Kuya P, Kuya Fred, Pockets Full of Pills. Make sure you go check them out. Everything's in the description below. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all.
Sige.
Yeah, we out of here now.
Hey guys, I'm that guy, creator of Pockets Full of Pills, Manila, Philippines' only African-American comic book studio. We are Fil-Am to the max, and we are here talking to Kuya P about our newest drops and our history. Representing for Pockets Full of Pills from Manila, Philippines to the DMV. Check us out. Hey guys, it's that guy from Pockets Full of Pills. Being a nerd of color means that I have a responsibility to show what it means to be a person of color in the creative field. That's why we created Pockets Full of Pills, where we have a diverse cast of Filipino and African-American characters and our crazy Lovecraftian horror heists. Check us out at Pockets Full of Pills on Facebook and Instagram.